I told myself coming into this game that if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and you can't beat a third-string quarterback starting, injury-ridden, wife-beating 49ers team at home, then something is wrong with you. And Rex Ryan said it best. I went into the game honestly not expecting much else but a loss. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go out and hand-deliver a 27-9 victory over the San Francisco 49ers to cap off my Thanksgiving weekend and move their record to 4-7 on the year. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast here today on YouTube, iTunes, and Google Play. If you're new around here, I am your host, the biased Buck fan, Rhett. Joined alongside me, as always, is my good buddy and co-host, Mr. Bucs Football, Evan. And Evan, I hope your Thanksgiving festivities were as good to you as they were to me. So how was your turkey day?
Well, first off, hello. Good to be back.
Yep.
But Thanksgiving was good. Just like you said, though, Rhett, it was nice to be capped off with a Bucs win yesterday. Sort of like the exclamation point, I guess you could say, right?
Oh, it was quite the treat. It really was.
I mean, what a full team effort, For the first time, I've said this on the show before, the Buccaneers have not really played a full 60 minutes yet. And yesterday was a full 60 minutes.
Yeah.
They dominated the whole game. They really did. And obviously, we're not going to sit here. The 49ers are bad, okay?
Yeah.
They're not. This isn't the Saints that they dominated, okay? So we're not going to sit here and say, oh, well, maybe, Super Bowl, here we come. But, it was nice to see them finally win a game that they should have won and win it handily.
And so let me ask you a question regarding this win. So, as you brought up, the Bucs wiped the floor with a terrible young football team while at home. And to make matters worse, this young 49ers team is missing its first-round linebacker, who they cut that morning.
Yep, that's a big distraction.
It's top wide receiver, and their franchise quarterback, who went down with a torn ACL earlier in the year. So, beating up this team, what does that really say about us? Because I'm as happy as anyone else about this win. I fully thought we were participating in No-Win November, and we waited until last minute to finally get that W in the column. But what does that really say about us? This team was not good.
Well, it says that they aren't as bad as the worst team, They're better than the worst team. This isn't about and none of these games are going to be anymore. All right, wins are okay, whatever. This season's not going nowhere. You're not making the playoffs. You're not winning the division. You're not getting a wild card. You actually mathematically cannot win the division. The Saints, Saints fans are going to be rooting for the Bucs next weekend, because if the Bucs win, if the Bucs beat the Panthers, the Saints will actually clinch the NFC South for good. And like I said, the Buccaneers cannot win the South, but what I'm looking for is individual players. And what I saw on Sunday was individual guys stepping up. We're going to talk about them. Jameis Winston played probably with the cleanest game of his career, right? 2 touchdowns. If I would have told you that Jameis Winston's going to throw 300 yards, going to throw the ball 30-plus times, throw 2 touchdowns, how many interceptions would you guess he would have?
See, I was thinking the touchdown-turnover ratio was going to be, I'll say 3-1 to be safe. I figured he'd come out, throw 3 touchdowns, and at least 1 pick. But that's just because it's what I've come to expect from Jameis. And, when he went out there and had a clean game, as you said, no turnovers. And let me mention as well, he did a great job of protecting the ball when he was in situations where he had to, hunker down and take the sack or whatever it was. There was one play, though, that I want to touch on. And we'll talk a little bit more on Jameis a little bit later in the show, because we do have another issue I wanted to bring up. But one play I wanted to touch on that freaked me out a little bit, gave me some Vietnam flashbacks, was he was under pressure, and he had Jaquiz Rodgers maybe a yard or 2 in front of him, and he tried this little shovel pass, And I know he wasn't really in a situation where there was anybody who could have picked the ball off, but I don't know, man. Something about Jameson trying to make a play at the last minute just leaves bad memories. So if it would have worked, I probably would sit here and talk about how great of a play it was, but the fact that it fell incomplete was just something I wanted to touch base on, because I stopped what I was doing when I was watching that play. I was like, whoa, 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 hey, hold on, because I'd seen that way too many times before.
Well, yeah, I didn't really have a problem with it. I mean, if you look, the offensive line was okay in this game. It was a jailbreak. Winston had 2 guys on him, and he saw Jacquizz Rodgers. He got the throw off clean. It wasn't like he was just he didn't see, he was just chucking the ball up there. So I didn't really have a problem with that. It's just that's his playmaker instinct. He's trying to not take a loss on every play, and right there, but also early in the game, I believe it was a drive after they had scored a touchdown. First play, Winston goes out, and they're looking for the deep shot to Desean Jackson, and Desean Jackson is covered. Winston is about to throw the ball, but stops, tucks it away, and takes a sack.
Yeah.
If he throws the ball, it's picked off.
Exactly. And that's that. I don't know about playmaking, but that's just that comfortableness in the pocket and the ability to recognize a play that's going to work as opposed to not going to work. But Sunday's win was awesome, and you just brought the guy up. But I think we need to talk about Desean Jackson. So the guy storms off the field, leaves the locker room early after a great team win, goes home, jumps on Twitter and Instagram to openly voice his complaints with being underutilized, and then he flexes a bottle of Ciroc just before midnight. So, a guy who vocalized just what a team player he was not even a month ago. And the crazy part is it's not even the first or the second time he's pulled this season. He clearly doesn't want to be here. And I don't know about you, but Jameis Winston seems to gel with just about everybody on the team except for Desean Jackson. And the way that I see it, I think I'm finally starting to see what the real problem is here.
Yeah, the reason Jameis Winston and Desean Jackson can't connect on a deep ball isn't all on Jameis Winston.
Yeah, it helps, if you didn't have the deep ball accuracy of Trent Dilfer, but
he can throw the deep ball perfect to anyone else.
He can.
You saw for yourself on the touchdown drive. That ball to Evans was a dime.
Yeah, it was. It was one of the prettiest throws I've ever seen him release, and we've seen it time and time again from player to player except for Djax.
I wish he wouldn't have led Evans out of bounds because that's a touchdown, but, they scored a touchdown anyway on the drive, so it was still a good throw. And he connected with Chris Godwin in the last game of last year, deep ball. He connected with O.J. Howard earlier this year in the Cleveland game, I believe, on a deep ball. He did that twice to O.J. Howard last year. Cameron Brate isn't really a deep ball guy, so Mike Evans, he's done it before.
I don't know if he's ever hit Adam Humphries in stride on a deep ball. Hump is he's never been in that situation.
Do you remember that one play against the Cowboys a few years back? Jameis was rolling out and he threw it up,
and it was the one that Humphries bumbled, right?
Yeah, it was tipped, but it landed right in Humphries' hands. That's probably the only deep ball that Adam Humphries has seen. But yeah, I don't know. All I'm going to say is Jameis Winston was at OTAs. Where was Desean Jackson?
That's rough. So when I had brought up Desean Jackson vocalizing his disappointment on social media, he had an Instagram post in particular, and what I'm referring to is there was a fan of some sort. I don't know if he was a Bucs fan. I doubt it. But his comment was basically along the lines of, wow, they really don't use you the way you should in Tampa. You should request a trade. You would ball out with Philly or Atlanta or another team like that. Desean Jackson responded and was like, wow, I know, right? That's not what he said. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said. Clearly vocalizing his frustrations on an open forum. So after that, I see a bunch of people post about it. I go to check it out myself, and Desean Jackson has turned off comments on the post, which means he can't read anything on there anymore. What does that say? It says he doesn't want to be here. Let's move on. And honestly, I wish we would have traded him at the deadline. He's easily worth a 3rd or 4th round pick. I can imagine there's some personnel floating around the NFL, especially during the trade deadline a couple weeks ago, that could have helped this team out a little bit more than Desean Jackson has. And it's great that he had the start that he did this year with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Don't let me discredit the guy at all. But, I don't know, man. He complains about being underutilized. I think we need to start putting him on some more punt returns.
Well, and that's his choice. He's choosing not to go out for punt returns, you know? Yeah, it's not a good look for Jackson. Not a good look for the organization, honestly. Yeah, just overall, just not what you want to see. Yeah, just not good.
Yeah.
Especially after it would be different, kind of different if it was after a loss. But this is after a win where you've just played a complete game, and then you do that.
It was a great team win at that.
And it was a win.
It was what the Browns game should have been before they gave it up and let it go to overtime.
It's what the Redskins game should have been too, but they didn't score any touchdowns.
And they didn't.
That's exactly what the Redskins game should have looked like. The defense was playing well, and the Bucs just couldn't score. If the Bucs could score touchdowns, the Redskins game would have looked exactly like that.
And speaking of defense, they finally look like they're starting to play some competent football.
Wait, Rhett.
Yeah.
Did they? Well, okay, so let me get this straight. The 49ers had the ball, and then they threw it up in the air, and a Buccaneer caught it. What is that called?
Yeah, it's something that I really haven't seen too much this season. In fact, only one time before this game. So, Bucs come away with 2 interceptions. The first one made me shit my pants. Ryan Smith in the end zone. I was at Beef O'Brady's watching the game. And I threw my hands up in the air. I had a chicken wing in my hand, sauce all over my fingers, all over my face. I stopped what I was doing and threw my hands in the air because I was so excited to see a Buccaneers defender catch a football. And then later on in the game, with a little over a minute to go, Isaiah Johnson, who we have said nothing but terrible things about on this show, snags an interception to pretty much seal the deal on that football game. But here's the thing. I said this defense finally looks like they're starting to play some competent football. The secondary did look lost here and there. I wouldn't say nearly as much as they have in the past. But there
Dante
were moments.
Pettis gave Carlton Davis some issues.
Yeah, he did. But overall, that unit is looking better. And they look better against a third-string quarterback missing his entire receiving core. So, I mean, it goes back to the discussion we had at the beginning of the show. What does that really say? These are young guys, and I'm sure that was one hell of a morale boost. But, I mean, the second pick was a tipped ball. The first one was nice. First one was a little bit of an overthrow. Ryan Smith able to take advantage in the end zone. But a third-string quarterback. I don't know whether to be happy or still kind of nervous. You want me to be 100% with you? I don't think we get another interception for the rest of the season.
Well, they're still playing at home, dude. I don't know.
But who are they playing at home? Cam Newton?
Okay,
Matt Ryan?
Cam Newton throws some balls. Cam Newton throws some balls that can be picked off.
Not against us. He plays the best football of his damn career when he plays.
Well, I don't know. Matt Ryan has not looked good this season to me. I'm just saying. Just going to put it out there.
And speaking of the Falcons, aren't we like a game behind third place?
I don't know. That's not a good stat.
Yeah, but listen, if we can finish third place in the NFC South as opposed to last...
I think they still... I'm not sure if the Falcons and Bucs have the same amount of wins.
The Falcons either wins, but I think they have 6 losses.
5. Well, they beat the Bucs head-to-head, so...
Division wins are going to be everything at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's going to determine whether it's another, basement dweller season or... It is. It really is.
So
we're going to have to see how this... I mean, it's a big opportunity for this team, especially, they got 3 division games coming up.
Oh, for sure.
So, it's a big opportunity.
And these are big games coming up, so let me read you this last stretch of the schedule. Bucs just beat the 49ers at home. Next week, you have the Panthers at home. The week after that, you have the Saints at home. The week after that, you're in Baltimore playing the Ravens.
Yikes.
After that, I believe you go to Dallas and you play the Cowboys again. And then you wrap up the season at home against the Atlanta Falcons. A game that I said they're going to lose. I can't speak for the Panthers, Saints, Ravens, and Cowboys, but I still think we're not going to beat the Falcons at home. I think they beat us this year. Do we have a good chance to beat the Panthers and Saints because we're playing at home? Well, here's the way that I look at it. We already beat the Saints once this year. I still can't believe that. Could you imagine the Saints going 14-2 into the postseason? And the only team they lost to was the Bucs twice? That's all. I mean, that's all we need for me to talk shit until the beginning of next year. That's all we would need.
That would be something.
That would be something. So you've got a tough schedule ahead of you. Division opponents. Really just need to see this team come out and do what they did against San Fran. You got to play complete football. But back on the defense, our first-round pick finally showed up. 4 tackles.
Hey, he's alive.
Yeah, he is. 4 tackles and a sack for Vita Vea. I don't know if it was a sack and a half.
I think it's just the 1 sack.
But 4 tackles and a sack for Vita Vea. Pretty productive day for him. And I'm really glad to see him finally get acquainted, and I hope he can keep it up against Carolina because, I mean, he looked good, man. It wasn't like a stroke of luck and he was in the backfield. Like, he was pretty dominant all day long. 3 tackles for loss. And people can say that, oh, it's just the 49ers. Well, I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but the center he was matching up against most of the time was a former All-Pro. I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Weston Richburg, yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's not an offensive lineman to turn your, what's the expression? To turn your nose at? To turn your head at? I don't know, I'm a little lost
yeah,
there.
something like that.
To sneeze at. He's not an offensive lineman to sneeze at. We'll say that.
There you go. That works.
But he's really coming into his own, man. How can he keep this up? I mean, I know the easy answer is he can just go out there and do the same thing.
Yeah, he could do that. But I think the biggest thing is just don't think about it too much. You know,
don't think about it too much.
I was thinking about that too. But you know, when you overthink things, you tend to play a little passive, and. I mean, Jason Pierre-Paul, I didn't hear about this, but Pewter Report guys, proud partners of the fan page and sponsors of this podcast, they even said that Pierre-Paul said to Villa, like, on the sack, he was like, go. He just went, just don't try to be fancy, just go. And it worked.
He's got the power to do it.
As soon as the ball was snapped, Vita went flying out of there. And you could see, and they also said this, you could see why everybody liked him as a top 15 pick. Because of that speed and power that he can play with, that's what Vita Vea can look like. And maybe, just maybe, and actually, Justin Pawlowski had mentioned this, and him and I don't always see eye to eye on a lot of things, but I agreed with this. He said, just maybe a rookie needed a rookie who missed all of training camp in the preseason needed 4 to 5 games to actually get his feet wet.
I mean, that's what we've seen. You know what I mean? He's finally come into his own. It's taken him some time, and I'm pretty sure that I even said on this very show last week or the week before, I was ready to file a missing persons report on him. Well, he got his feet wet, he got acquainted, and he came out with a vengeance. So hopefully he's figured out that he can use his power and make things happen, because we've talked about his power on the show as well.
He's so he can throw any lineman there is. Obviously he's not going to every time, but he can throw any lineman there is straight to the ground.
We played the Browns, and when we played the Browns, I don't exactly remember where Joe Thomas lined up when he played for Cleveland, but that'd be an interesting matchup.
Yeah. He's tackle, and Vita's a defensive tackle, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much you would actually see it. But hey,
you bring a double team or something.
Yeah, and it was something. It was good to see, though. It really was. It was good to see Vita get some confidence going, and I definitely think that he's just going to continue to press, and all the Derwin James people out there, they were pretty quiet, right?
Yeah.
They weren't. You didn't really see Derwin James had an interception. The Bucs game finished up, and a word about it. If Vita Vea continues to impress and play like that, you're going to hear less and less of Derwin James. And if Jason Light needed a better game for his guys, what better way than that? Carl Nassib, animal. JVP broke the sack curse, right? We have not talked about this yet. Broke the sack curse.
That was actually next up on my notes list.
Well, there we go.
Yeah.
And we can go right into that after I say this. Jameis Winston, no turnovers. Mike Evans, right? Mike Evans caught a long ball, had over 100 yards. Adam Humphries with a touchdown. Cameron Brate with a touchdown. Vita Vea with the best game of his career. Jordan Whitehead played pretty well. Caro Santos made all of his kicks, including a 41-yard field goal and a 38-yard field goal right down the middle. All those guys were brought in Jason Light. That looks good on him. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't really think Jason Light's that good and want him going. And I've just been saying, I don't really care, right, whether Light stays or goes, because the ultimate thing is to win, right? And whoever helps this team win is who I want. But the facts are there. And this game was a huge showcase for Jason Light. And especially, Ali Marpet is getting... I've heard just a league that Ali Marpet is getting all pro talks. That he's getting... That a lot of people think that he is playing as the best left guard in the NFL today. And if he gets an all-pro selection, and Carl Nassib, Jason Pierre-Paul... Vita Vea, Jameis Winston, if those guys continue to play like this, he's not going to go anywhere.
And speaking of JPP, man, I hope he's on pace for a Pro Bowl year. I know they're stacking all the votes now. You've got time to vote. But I don't know, man. If there's a Buccaneer I want to see in the Pro Bowl this year, it is going to be JPP. And speaking of him, it's time for our favorite segment of the show, the JPP and Carl Nassib Hour. Minus about 58 minutes. JPP, first and foremost, he went down about halfway through the game. Went into the medical tent, and he looked badly hurt. And I immediately saw him on the ground, and I was like, that's not good. Because the first thing that I thought of was he re-aggravated that injury from New York, and I was like, oh, that's not good. So I'm glad he got his 10 sacks, and I was really hoping he's okay. But guess what? He came back in the game.
He's been playing hurt. Yeah, he's been playing hurt most of the year.
He came back into the game, and did I want him to come back in the game if he was seriously hurt? No, I really didn't. But that just proves the drive.
He doesn't care about your opinions, Rhett.
He really doesn't. He cares about going out there and as you brought up, breaking the sack curse. The first Buccaneer since a little guy named Simeon Rice to get 10 sacks in a season. And just like you said, this says tons about Jason Light and the talent he was able to bring in. Carl Nassib, same principle here. It looks good. Mm-hmm. Carl Nassib had a hell of a game.
Especially when the guys like Nassib and the guys like Bray, the Humphreys, the guys that aren't as easy to find, Oh, yeah. Jason Pierre-Paul, we all knew who he was before they traded for him, right?
I'll tell you what, I didn't think he was a 10-sack Jason Pierre-Paul, though.
No, he had 8.5 last year, so, looking pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
James Winston overall pick. Mike Evans, 7th overall pick. Vita Vea, 12th overall pick. I mean, it's not, but the real, I mean, finding Quan in the 4th round, finding Adam Humphries, finding Cameron Braid, those type of pickups are what's going to keep his job. Now, it's a week-to-week thing. Next week, they could all look absolute. Jameis Winston could throw 3 interceptions. Cameron Braid drops 3 balls. Adam Humphries drops a touchdown. Vita Vea has no tackles again. Jason Pierre-Paul doesn't have a sack or anything. And then Santos misses 2 kicks. And then we're saying, oh, well, this doesn't look good now. It's a week-to-week thing. But right now, I think Jason Licht has a pretty decent shot at staying.
Yeah. It's really just going to depend on how well these guys are able to wrap up the season. Because, yeah, they've come around. Nassib and JPP have been on fire since the beginning of the season. But I'm sure to a lot of people who are paying attention, these rookies, it's later in the season. You've only got 4 or 5 more games at this point. And I know I just read the schedule, but I don't know. My mind's somewhere
I believe
else.
it's 5.
You've only got 5 more games left at this point. These guys have to consistently go out there, do their jobs, and prove that Jason Licht made the right choice. But there was a tweet that I wanted to quote, and I want to say it was you who had posted it up, and it was a little while ago. But it was basically talking about all the guys that you're going to want to hang on to after this season and pretty much build your team around, because we're talking about the future of this Bucs defense and offense and personnel in general. O.J. Howard was on that list. Carl Nassib was on that list. I think JPP was on that list. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
It was something along the lines of, if you're going to clean house this offseason, these are the guys you need to hang on to. And it was,
yeah, I think that was JC. That was JC Cornell.
Okay.
I had done my off-season recap, but I think JC was the guy who had and I had quoted it and said, I was like, damn it, JC. I was going to do a nice job anyway.
Exactly.
It was him, though. But, yeah. It was a good list.
I like the idea. It brings forth a better idea of stability when you really look at that list. Chris Godwin, another guy on that list. It just, to me, it reads stability, and it reads, these are the guys who are going to be the future of your franchise. And they're all guys that we have talked about time and time again doing great things for this organization. So I'm very, very excited for that. If you're able to find the full list, interrupt me at any time and let me know.
I found it right here.
Okay, perfect.
He said, Bucs roster, these are the guys I'm keeping. Marpet, OJ, Evans, was it Justin Evans? Or, Mike Evans, whatever. They're both Evans on the list. Jonathan, Humphries, Jensen, JPP, Johnson,
Whoa.
Barber, just what?
Your audio was coming through a little polluted. If you want to start from the top, sorry about that.
Oh, you're all right. Anyways, Marpet, OJ Howard, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Adam Humphries, Ryan Jensen, Carlton Davis, Vernon Hargraves, Ronald Jones, Peyton Barber, Justin Evans, Jordan Whitehead, Quan Alexander, Vita Vea, Kendall Beckwith, Levante David, and he said Jameis was playing the season with new.
Yeah, I mean, that's a list I can.
I would add Nassib to that list.
Yeah, I don't know why I initially thought he was on that list, but I guess not. But we've spent a majority of the show talking about this defense and the way that they were able to play against the 49ers. Let's flip the script and talk about this offense. 2 glaring things that this offense did well. First one, Mike Evans hits the 1,000-yard mark on the season. His 5th straight season with 1,000-plus yards. He joins Randy Moss, and A.J. Green is the only receiver to do that over his first 5 seasons. And if you're asking me my opinion at this point, he is elite. No question about it. Does he drop the ball sometimes when he shouldn't? Absolutely. But he is elite, bar none.
Yeah, I mean, this speaks to how well he's done this year. Remember last year in week 17 when Jameis Winston was trying to force the ball to Mike Evans, and he was trying to force the ball to Mike Evans because Evans was not at 1,000 yards yet.
Yeah.
He was not at 1,000 yards yet.
He hit it that last game.
Yeah, he finished last season with 1,001 receiving yards. This season, with 5 games left, he is 1,073.
I mean, he's doing all the right things.
Think about that for a second. 1,073, and there's 5 games left.
I like it. Mike Evans is everything and more that the Bucs have asked him to be since stepping foot on a football field in a Buccaneers uniform. And I gotta say, man, he is in the running. I'm sure he is plenty of people's favorite player, but he's probably my favorite Buccaneers player, especially at the receiver position, in a very, very long time.
Well, I mean, they haven't had an elite receiver like this.
They really haven't. And I remember during the Pittsburgh game when he broke the touchdown record for franchise touchdowns, everyone's immediate reaction was like, wow, that was pretty quick. That's pretty disappointing. But the point you had brought up is the Bucs have never had, in my eyes, they've never had a long-term, and I consider Mike Evans long-term. He's going to play a lot more years here. They haven't had a long-term, elite wide receiver. And that's the in and out of it. But he's out here doing great things, man. I'm really glad we ended up drafting him years ago.
Yeah. I mean, if Jason Light missed on that pick, Mike Evans is making him look good because Jason Light passed on Odell Beckham Jr. He also passed on Aaron Donald. But I mean, you don't hear a lot of people say that. Oh, Jason Light passed on them and him because they got Mike Evans. Can you imagine if they would have drafted someone other than Mike Evans? Oh,
I'm
God.
I'm sure the discussion would have been,
Jason Light would have already been gone then. I mean, Jason Light would definitely gone. If you didn't draft Mike Evans and you drafted a guy like Sammy Watkins, who hasn't been bad, but not on Mike Evans' level, and the guys after him are Odell Beckham, Mike Evans, Aaron Donald, yeah, you're gone.
Yeah. And funny thing about Mike Evans, too, is I'm pretty sure I brought it up at the end of the show last week, but I went out of town for Thanksgiving. I went up to Greenville, Tennessee, probably one of the smallest towns in the state. It's a good old boy.
And you went to have Thanksgiving with Marcus Mariota.
Well, I went to the mall. I don't remember. I want to say it was Johnson City Mall, but there was this kiosk, and he was selling signed merchandise, and it was this younger kid. And I walk up, and I'm just kind of looking around. You got a lot of Pittsburgh Steelers memorabilia. You got some movie posters. You got a whole lot of Odell stuff. You've got a signed Dak jersey. Most of it's all signed. It's the guys who bring a box to the meet and greets kind of signed. But I'm looking around for Buck stuff, and he walks up to me. He's like, "Hey, man, can I help you look for anything?" I said, "Oh, to be honest, it's probably nothing you guys have." He's like, "Well, what are you looking for?" I said, "Oh, well, I'm a Bucs fan." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And he's like, "How are you guys doing this year?" I said, "Pfft." I laughed at him. I said, "We're pretty trash." I said, "It's not going too well." He's like, "Yeah, it'll get better." And then he goes, "Giannis is tearing it up, though." And I looked at him, and I was like, "What did you just say to me?" He's like, "Giannis. He's out there tearing it up." I'm like, dude, I'm talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We sat there for 2 or 3 minutes and had a conversation about the Milwaukee Bucks. Because in my head, I'm like, wow, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are that irrelevant. I'm pretty sure I was wearing... I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I was wearing my Bucks hat as well. So that made matters worse.
At first, when you were saying Giannis, I was like, is he pronouncing James wrong?
See,
and then I got it. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's what I had thought. When he was saying Giannis, I'm like, Jameis? Like, no, man. Well, so that interaction happened. And then a little bit later, kind of tying in everything I had said about Mike Evans, I went into another sports store that was there, selling jerseys and everything, kind of like a Pro Image Sports down here. So I go in there, and I'm looking at all the jerseys on the wall. The only piece of Buccaneers memorabilia in that store is a Mike Evans jersey. And I was like, yep, Mike Evans is, you can talk about Jameis, but I think everyone can agree that Mike Evans is the elite standout player on that Bucs offense. And you know what? O.J. Howard's going to be up there in a couple of years as well. But Mike Evans doing great things. Now, I've been saving this topic for last because I know it's going to be an interesting discussion. And I know we've touched on it a little bit beforehand, but we're going to bring it all back around. And it has to do with quarterback Jameis Winston. The way that I see it, Jameis Winston, if he wants to keep his job in Tampa, he's got to play the rest of the season the way he played against San Francisco. I mean, no interceptions against San Fran. I'm not going to say that he has to be turnoverless. That's a word. I'm not going to say that he has to have 0 turnovers for the rest of the year, but he's got to cut back on them, and he's got to do more good than bad. So let me read you this stat line from Jameis against the 49ers, because you had brought it up earlier in the show. It wasn't a blockbuster day, but it was smart football. 29 for 38 passing, 312 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. I mean, no interceptions, smart decision-making. This is the Jameis that I fully support, and it's the Jameis that I know and love. So, what are your thoughts on it?
You don't know this, Jameis. This is not a typical Jameis Winston game, right?
Oh, it's not. But it's the Jameis that I love. Let me say that.
You wish it... Well, yeah, I mean, but also something that Pewter Report guys have brought up. Is that going to be enough to beat the Saints or the Panthers or the Falcons? No, it's not. You know, he's going to have to take some more chances, which could lead to more interceptions, but it could lead to more touchdowns. Who knows, you know? But the biggest thing, I think, is, when to take a sack, when to check it down. That's something that we've seen. Actually, we saw this year even that he started to do more. It's just he had one bad game. I'm telling you. I mean, he even said in his press conference this week, he said, you know, the Atlanta game, I played good. He said I had one boneheaded play. He said the Cleveland game, I had one boneheaded play in overtime. He said I was playing good football, guys. Then he said I had one horrible game in Cincinnati. And that was it. So, I mean, then he comes back and plays another good football. You know, he comes back second half versus the Giants, plays good, and then plays a whole solid game against the 49ers. So, I still think there's a lot of potential here. And I think that he will stay on as the Buccaneers quarterback.
You know what I think it is? I don't know if you've noticed. I'm sure you have. But these past few weeks, Jameis Winston's been sporting a visor. You had made a joke one time about it being prescription. Maybe it's allowed him to see deeper down the field, but ever since that visor's come on, he's been balling out.
I'm telling you, that visor is actually like glasses. Because you always see him squinting and stuff, and now you don't. I'm telling you, there's something with that visor. He's added more gear this year than ever. He's wearing the glove now. Now he's wearing the visor.
Right?
I'm liking it.
He's swagging up.
Yeah.
I dig it, man. The NFL's going to launch a full investigation on, like, Jameis Winston visor to see if it gives him a competitive edge. Maybe there's, like, some computers in there. Like, have you seen the Iron Man movies? It's kind of like Jarvis in the suit. He's able to talk to it. It identifies targets and everything. I don't know. Maybe I'm just crazy and overthinking it, but yeah. I like what you said. You know, the game against San Francisco isn't going to be enough to beat a team like Carolina or New Orleans, or, you know, if we're talking Atlanta at this point, maybe it could beat Atlanta because they're not super good this year, but it's a division game. You got to go out there and you got to play your best football, and I don't know if 300 yards and 2 touchdowns is the best football we've ever seen from Jameis Winston. But look, if he keeps it consistent and he does what he has to do and we win games, and it's all right in my book. I'll take Jameis.
Just no bonehead plays. Yeah. You know, you're going to throw interceptions. Everybody is. That's fine. Don't go chucking it up in the air for an easy interception. Make the defense work for it, you know? Don't try to play hero ball and fumble the ball. Make the defense work for those turnovers. It's going to happen, right? You're going to throw interceptions. You're going to have fumbles. But you got to be smart with it. You can't just give the defense free possession, you know?
Can't hand it to him like the Green Bay game. I think that was probably the worst pick six of Jameis' career, was that Green Bay game. Because it gave me flashbacks of the Rose Bowl.
He had the fumble. I know what you're talking about.
Fell backwards. Fumble. Yeah, we'll call it a fumble. I mean, he literally, you watch back, he fell backwards and just threw it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right to
I
him.
mean, yeah.
So-
Yeah, I know. And, I mean, it doesn't help that the offensive line isn't that good, but still, can't happen. Something he's got to fix. Something hopefully he does fix. I mean, but yeah, like you said, consistency's key. You know, he could play like this, but next week he could go out and throw 3 interceptions, and we're back to square one.
Yeah.
Can't happen.
Now, a quick injury update before we wrap things up here. DeMar Dotson went down with an injury. It looked pretty bad. I never saw him come back in the game. Do we have anything on him? Because, I mean, that right side of the line is hurting if DeMar Dotson is out.
Currently, I mean, he didn't come back. I won't have anything until probably Wednesday when they practice. So, really don't know. Don't know about Jason Pierre-Paul. Vinny Curry was able to come back this week, so that's good. He actually had a few pressures. I'm not sure about Ronald Jones. He was still, I guess, he was limited all week in practice, and I guess the hamstring still isn't 100% yet. The Buccaneers only really used Peyton Barber and Jaquiz Rogers, so Deshaun Wilson's on IR. They didn't use Dare Ogunbowale at all.
Wasn't he returning?
Well, I mean, like, in the running back position.
Okay, yeah.
So they didn't really use him. So I would expect Ronald Jones probably be back this week. Dotson, it doesn't look good. I would expect probably miss at least one game. Jason Pierre-Paul probably is going to play it out. Hopefully they can get Levante David back this week. I don't know about Justin Evans because, like I said, he was in a walking boot last week. So whenever you're in there, maybe the week after that for Justin Evans. But I think if you can get Levante, Ronald Jones back, and get Jason Pierre-Paul playing, I think he should be all right.
Alrighty, man. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's just about going to do it for this episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, whether it's on YouTube, iTunes, or Google Play. You can follow the show on Instagram at Cannon Fire Podcast. One word, Cannon Fire Podcast. You can also find us on Twitter at Cannon Fire Pod. Make sure you follow my new Instagram page at Biased Buck Fan. There you can see me yell and scream and lose my voice about this team every single Sunday. You can follow my co-host Evan at Bucs Wave, formerly Bucs Football, on Instagram and Twitter as well. Make sure you check out our partners at pewterreport.com for some of the best Bucs coverage in the game. And don't forget to check out our sponsors at cooltowel.com. I am Rhett, signing off for Evan. Hope you ate a lot of turkey and took a lot of naps. Let's get ready for this last quarter of football. We'll see you next time. Go Bucs!